Bitcoin bear market? Is it possible that Bitcoin is entering into a bear market? I'm going to talk about the facts here, talking about the charts, we're talking about the FUD, we're talking about everything that's going on with Bitcoin, this recent crash, and how it's all playing out very similar to the 2017 bull/crash in Bitcoin market. So we're going to break it down right here in this video. So if you want to find out exactly where you should be targeting Bitcoin to be buying going forward, stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Patrick here. And guys, I'm your friend, right? I am all about Bitcoin going to the moon. I want it all. I want it all to go to the moon. Millions and millions of dollars for everybody. But I've got to ask myself a few different questions. Like, number one, have we seen this happen before? Have I been here before? I remember 2017 when everyone thought that Bitcoin was never going to crash back down, when it was going to just keep going and going and going. And that was when it was $20,000. And recently Bitcoin going from what, $3,000, $4,000 up to $64,000. Well, it seems like this pattern, it happens. It's happening again. These sequences happen over and over with Bitcoin. In 2014, the bull market, we saw this pattern. In 2017, we saw this pattern as well. Basically, what happens is there's a reversal. There's a drop to 50%. Well, guess what? We reversed from the top, being $64,000. Where do we go? We went down 53%, my friends. 53% on the dot. We have now bounced back up here. $45,000, $48,000 being that 20% retracement, which is funny because if you look at the chart here, guess what? The EMAs there are pretty much right at that 50% retracement. So that lines up perfectly with technical analysis. Let's talk about the human instinct here, the human aspect. So you've got the media talking about Bitcoin. You've got Elon Musk talking about Bitcoin. You got a lot of people talking about how they are bullish on Bitcoin, but it's, definitely an interesting spot to think about where to be buying at, where to be holding, and all of that. So for me, I'm looking at where the chart has showed support at before. Where has Bitcoin bounced at before? Where are those technical ideas? So if Bitcoin drops from $64,000, where is that 50% pullback? Well, $30,000 being that 50% pullback. If we go even lower, like I've talked about before, that 80% pullback, well, there we are down to like the $12,000, $10,000, $9,000 area. And it sounds crazy, I know, possibly be $9,000 again, right? That's this insane idea. And a lot of people are going to hate on it, but I've talked about this before. I made this exact video back in 2017, charting this out. Guys, I have been here before. I have heard the moon. Everybody talking about Lambos and moons and all of that. I've been there. I've done it, my friends. So let's just focus again on the chart. I don't really care what people think, what people say, but let's just go back here to 2017 and look at how this played out. So again, guess what we got? We've got the high up there at 20,000. We pulled back to about 50%, pretty much right on the dot, down there 50%. We then bounced back, guess what? Right around 20%. So 20% being right around there. We bounced back, and then we continued lower. So you can see, we dropped from the highs back in 2017. We dropped 50%. We had this big squeeze back up. Everyone thought that Bitcoin was now going to go back to the moon. Well, guess what happened? It got stuck again right at that 15 to 20%, being the $16,000 area. Remember, Bitcoin, the high being around $20,000. It crashes down here to 10. It squeezes back up to 17. Everybody thinks that now Bitcoin is going to the moon. Well, then look what happens. We go into a 2-year Bitcoin bear market. And then there in 2018, the low being around $3,000, little bounce back a couple times. But in general, you can see it took some time, my friends. If we look at the weekly chart, you can see a little bit better going back there, 2017, the high, 20,000, it pulls back. And then now where we are at. So interesting to see how this pattern plays out. But also, I want to focus here on this. We had this huge move. we got this pullback, and it's like, wow, the world's ending, right? The world's ending now. But then guess what? Wow, we got another big squeeze to the moon. So what does that mean for us right now? Bitcoin is playing out exactly like we talked about. I talked about this literally months ago, talking about this pullback here, this 80% pullback. And now with people like Elon Musk, you got Cathie Wood. Today, Cathie Wood with ARK Investments said they bought a bunch of Bitcoin. And that's kind of what I think is keeping Bitcoin alive right now, that hopium that this, is going to squeeze back up. But like I said, it's really interesting to see that this pullback puts us down here 50%. And then these EMAs are pretty much right back up that 20%. So from 50, now back retracement to the 20% from the highs. It's interesting to see how exactly that plays out. Now, the one thing to think about with Bitcoin as well is the Fed with overall inflation and everything that's going on. So at the end of the day, you've got the Fed just continuously printing money, quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is adding supply of money, but tools, interest rates, and taxes to regulate and increase the demand for money. Right? So they're using these different tools and interest rates trying to increase the demand, but the problem is money, it's getting printed and people really just don't want the dollar anymore. So it's not unreasonable at this point to expect inflation to just go through the roof. And well, at the end of the day, Bitcoin is scarce. Bitcoin can't just be created from thin air. So that's one of the big reasons that Bitcoin will, I think, no matter what, at the end of the day, will continue to grow in time. It's not that Bitcoin maybe, is more and more valuable over time. It's really just comes down to inflation. You got to think about inflation. You got to think about scarcity here. You got to think about digital gold, basically. Bitcoin being the digital gold, being something that just can't be printed. And that's something that's really important to think about that. And there's an interesting fact. Cathie Wood actually said this, that if all the corporations in the USA were to put 10%, just 10%, my friends, 10% of their cash into Bitcoin, that alone would add $200,000. Well, that would make Bitcoin $200,000. So here we are at 38,000. You got Cathie Woods talking about the idea that if Bitcoin does go to the moon and only 10% of the cash from all the corporations in the USA go into Bitcoin, well, you can see the opportunity here. Now, the thing, again, to focus on here, like I said, long-term, bullish. Right now, this is looking very similar to the 2017 move, 2018 move. Now, it's also really interesting to look at the media as well. So the same media that's been talking about Bitcoin and how opportunity with cryptocurrency and all that is very bullish. It's all going to the moon. Yay, yay, yay. It's all happy, happy. The same media talking about that is now talking about how Bitcoin is crashing down and it's all going to zero. So it's interesting to see. We've also seen the whole China deal as well before, where China comes out saying that they're going to ban Bitcoin. They're not going to have Bitcoin anymore, and they're cracking down on Bitcoin. The same exact thing happened in 2017. So it's kind of interesting to see how we're getting a very similar technical move on the chart. We're getting very similar FUD as well with the news and people talking about that. And China is coming out saying they're going to have their digital currency. So it's interesting to see how this all works out. And the thing too is that if we do go into a bear market, obviously there's going to be opportunities to buy. So it's not like I want to go and buy the first dip, right? And obviously I did buy some altcoins and things like that on this dip. But in general, if I'm going to be loading up on Bitcoin here and I see that Bitcoin really enters into a bear market, for me, I would be targeting this area down here at the $10,000 area to be buying the dip on Bitcoin, on Ethereum, pretty much cryptocurrency across the board. That would be my target. And I know it sounds crazy. People were going to be like, well, it's never going to get that low. Someone told me that the other day. Someone said that Bitcoin will never see $10,000 again. And well, wouldn't speak too soon, my friends, because there is always an opportunity for this to happen. And we've seen this, like I said, back in 2017. If you go back to 2014, same exact thing. Can't even do it on this chart because it doesn't show it. But you can see some of the cycles here in Bitcoin. This was 2016. Bitcoin went from 440 up there to 800. It then pulled back from that high. And I wouldn't even really call that a bull market there. But it pulled back here about 30%. It bounced back. And then it made a low down here at about 50%. Obviously, Bitcoin is bullish long-term. Like I said, I'm bullish long-term on Bitcoin. These pops, these drops, They look crazy, which is funny because if you look here, like if you look here at the chart on Bitcoin, this is 2017, you know, it looks insane. Like, wow, it's going to the moon, and then it crashes back down. You're like, well, it's over. It's over. There's no more time to buy. Well, then look at the opportunity to buy here. It goes sideways, and then we get that big move to the moon. So that's the story here on Bitcoin. It's not to be scared. It's not to be like, hey, the world is ending. We got to get out of Bitcoin. You know, it's not like that at all. At the end of the day here, we're focused on two things: opportunity to buy Bitcoin at a good price, and the idea of how the chart is showing us something that has happened 2 or 3 times before. Is that to say that Bitcoin's going to $10,000 for sure? No, that is not what that is saying. But the way that it's looking right now is that Bitcoin is following a very similar pattern that we have seen before, and we've got to be aware of that, and we've got to understand how Bitcoin moves. And that's the breakdown here on Bitcoin. Realistically, I'm still holding my target for $100,000 on Bitcoin in the next few years, but we might see $10,000 first. And like I said, if Bitcoin does crash down to $10,000, it's going to give us some really good opportunities to be buying some altcoins and Bitcoin in general. So if you guys haven't already, do me one big favor, hit that like button, subscribe button, all the buttons down below. I will talk to you guys later on.